JKB back with another episode. Today I'm going to be reviewing Dishonored 2 on the show. Thank you to Bethesda for sending over the review copy. Without getting into any spoilers, I'll say the game takes place 15 years into the future. You can play as Corvo, who is from the first game of course, except this time he has a full voice. In the first game he didn't have a voice until the DLC. You can also play as Emily, who is his daughter. So those two characters together are pretty cool to see on screen. However, I gotta say, at the beginning of the game, you're really thrown into a revenge tale, just like the first game, and it's a little disappointing that you don't get a little bit more of backstory about who Emily is. And of course, you do learn about her as the game expands. However, I just feel the beginning of a game like this, you really want to get to know the characters, and maybe not as you're trying to figure out all of the missions. Both Emily and Corvo have their own array of supernatural abilities, and this is where replayability is going to come into effect. I chose to play as Emily my first go around, and there are so many different ways to succeed in all of these missions, from being completely stealthy to on purposely being completely and utterly a serial killer. In terms of the setting of the game, I have to say I'm a huge fan of this. It's very close to some sort of like steampunk setting. However, it's not as steampunk as I kind of wished it was. In saying that though, the world is completely and utterly dreadful. It's decaying. There's paint chips all over the walls, broken windows, people are dead in the streets. Everything seems to be wet all the time, just like all my ex-girlfriends. It's really an interesting environment. It makes me really engaged. I want to kind of see into all the different rooms and see how people are living in this disgusting world. The chaos system from the first game makes a return. Now, this is what affects your main character. So if you play the game like a complete asshole and just go into a mission and murder everybody, your character actually reflects that, and the environment around you will also reflect that. So this time around, they decided to put stats on all of the non-playable characters. So there's 3 different stats on these characters. So sympathetic, guilty, and murderous. So, for instance, killing a sympathetic person gives you more chaos points rather than, killing somebody who's just sympathetic. So the characters in the environment will actually interact with you and see your chaos points. So if you're a murderous villain in this game, they'll be way more aggressive towards you. And there's something else that's really cool that's introduced here. When you go through these missions, there's something called blood flies that have sort of taken over portions of the map, and these blood flies will attack you. They essentially are feeding on the blood of all these dead bodies. Now what's cool here is if you're a murderous psychopath and you decide that you're not going to actually hide the bodies, more of these flies show up and give away sort of your stealth mechanics. You can no longer hide as easy as you used to because these bugs are chasing after you. So that's actually really cool. Just wanted to remind you, if you guys like what you're seeing right now, please subscribe and turn on notifications. It really helps the show out. Now let me talk about what I liked and disliked about the game. First and foremost, the frame rate does dip at times. When you have a lot of AI characters coming after you in the game and they're swinging swords and you're trying to block, and block on timing too, because if you block at a certain time, it actually throws them off balance. But when the frame rate dips like this, it does take you out of it just a little bit. In terms of the story, I feel the pacing at the beginning of the game is way off. It's really rushed. I want to know about Emily. I want to know her journey. I want to know how she got to where she is. But the antagonist just shows up and causes some shit right away. You're thrown into the story immediately, and you kind of just feel like it's a little bit rushed. And then, of course, last but not least, on what I didn't like about the game, which is kind of a nitpick here, but there's a lot of the same elements from the first game. It's essentially the first game. I wouldn't say remade because it is a different story, but it's very close to a soft reboot type of vibe. You kind of been there, done that. Now, in terms of what I liked about this game, the mission structure is solid. I absolutely love the fact that you can go into a mission and be this stealth machine and just, walk right through a mission without being detected. However, if you want to be a serial killer, there's so many tools at your disposal, and it really comes together in some sort of, unique gameplay that I haven't really experienced since the first game. There's so many tools in this. It's just, the variety is just really there for you. Next up, I have to talk about the tons of items that are around the world. If you want to get into the lore of Dishonored 2, you can read books, you can read memos, journals, all of these things, open up cupboard doors, unlock special rooms. All of those things are in this game, so there's a ton of those to be found. The mixture of all the cool weapons and the supernatural powers is solid. You know, sometimes you just want to go into a mission and essentially be a murderer, but sometimes you want to use those supernatural abilities to you know, sneak through the mission. It's really a solid mixture between the two, and that's really what's going to give this game the score at the end of the review. The setting is grim, dark, unforgiving. Like I said, it's always moist. It always feels rotting. You get the sense that a lot of it's like a depression. It's very, very grim. However, what you're doing can be considered to be heroic. So those things do work together. In terms of the puzzles, oh my goodness, there's one in this game that is so frustrating but so rewarding once you figure it out. It's awesome. Now, last but not least, I gotta say, the replayability is awesome. 2 different characters, go through the game twice, played on different difficulties. I gotta be honest here, this game is solid, so I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 and say anybody that played the first game, definitely go pick this one up right away. You're not gonna get too much out of the story, however, you're gonna have a great time with all of the gameplay elements. So thank you so much for watching my review, and I'll see you on the next episode. If you like my review on Dishonored 2, check out my review for Skyrim and whatever the hell I did last. Links are on screen now. Definitely subscribe. Thank you for watching.